Breaking news, Errol Spence came out revealing that he had to get a cataract surgery done. That was past due before the Terence Crawford fight, which was blocking his vision from being able to see. Errol Spence said it was covering his eye. That's why he was getting caught with so many jabs and hooks. Errol said, quote, "Had to get cataract surgery. It's been past due. Shit was covering my eye. Why do you think I got hit with so many jabs and hooks? Still a great performance by bro." You might be right, but one trick got Olympics, kids in private school, mom and pops retired years ago, passport full of stamps, and I don't have to pick up a glove again if I don't want to. All that said, you can kill that retired shit though. Yeah, I got my ass beat, shit was past due. I didn't live exactly like a boxer for the most part, laugh out loud. Some of y'all forget what this shit really for until you 37 trying to make a comeback for 10% of what you used to make. They asked me that I want to do the presser, showed up, no glasses, answered all of the questions, had up, gave bruh a hug for the ass whipping, good shit, and dipped. End of the quote. Listen, there's no shame in fighting the best and losing to the best. Errol Spence needs to block all of the hate. Or at least not pay attention to it. Don't even look at it. More importantly, when it comes to the first part, well, you really can't have it both ways. Errol Spence can tell Crawford you had a great performance, but he's taken away from that performance by making excuses 6 months later, stating that he had to get a cataract surgery done before the Crawford fight since it was covering his eye and he wasn't able to see, at least out of that eye. So Errol Spence is already letting it be known. The weight was not the issue. I told you guys before the fight, Errol Spence revealed this was one of his best weight cuts. So clearly Errol Spence was not drained. What Errol Spence is claiming went wrong is that he couldn't see out of his eye that he had cataract, which raises a whole lot of questions. First of all, this kind of takes away from Errol Spence's silence due to the fact everyone was making excuses. Every fighter that lost made ridiculous excuses, but Errol Spence. He was the only one that made zero excuses. Naturally so, when a fighter loses in the sport of boxing due to the embarrassment that came with it, they make excuses to why they lost. But Errol Spence, he stayed 10 toes solid. Fast forward a half a year later after the Crawford versus Errol Spence fight, Errol Spence broke his silence by making excuses, and not the excuses that his fans came out with, such as Errol Spence was drained or Errol Spence suffered a rib injury. Absolutely not. Errol Spence revealed that he suffered an eye injury before the Crawford fight to the point where he had to get it done. However, he delayed the surgery, the cataract surgery, that was preventing him from being able to see out of his eye. Now, here is where the questions come in. If Errol Spence had a surgery today, I'm assuming because he posted this video today, when are we going to get the rematch then? Since it takes 8 weeks to recover from a cataract surgery. And obviously during that 8 weeks, Errol Spence has to recover. He can't spar or anything of that sort. Due to that, he needs 3 months after that in order to get prepared for the rematch with Crawford. That's 5 months away from today. So the earliest we can see the rematch between Crawford and Errol Spence is May 2024. And we all know the rematch was supposed to take place according to the rematch clause on December 2023, last month. Therefore, is Crawford going to be willing to wait for Errol Spence to recover? I think so. Remember, Crawford is appreciative of Errol Spence since it was Errol Spence who helped make the fight to begin with. Additionally, this is going to help sell the rematch if the fight happens at 154 and after Errol Spence claimed he suffered an injury called cataract where he had to get a surgery done before the Crawford fight. This is definitely going to help sell the rematch even more. I didn't even know how they were going to pursue trying to sell the rematch. Well, there it is. These are the talking points they're going to use in order to sell the fight. Honestly speaking, if Errol Spence can come back and beat boxing pound for pound #1 Terence Bud Crawford, this will go down as the greatest comeback in the history of the sport. I'm talking about a rematch that everyone has written Errol Spence off. If he can come back and beat Crawford, man, that will be historical. That will be legendary. Now, with this new excuse Errol Spence came out with, this is definitely going to take away from his victory if he's able to beat Crawford in a rematch. In the sense of, I don't know if this is going to be the greatest comeback in the history of boxing. The way Crawford dominated Errol Spence in the first fight and Errol Spence coming back to beat him in a rematch. By revealing this excuse of him not being able to see out of his eye, people are just going to use that when they talk about the fights between Crawford and Errol Spence and the comeback Errol made. Don't get me wrong, though. The comeback is still going to be legendary and historical. However, it does take away from it a little bit by revealing this new information. What this also did is put a whole lot of pressure on Errol Spence to perform in the rematch differently than he did in the first fight with Crawford. People going to remind Errol Spence that he said he couldn't see out of his eye. That's why he looked the way he looked. The excuses of not being able to see from Errol Spence, and also all of the excuses from the Errol Spence fans as far as the rib injury, additionally him being drained, so on and so forth. All of these excuses are going to put more pressure on Errol Spence to perform differently leading up to the Crawford rematch. Everyone is going to have these excuses in mind to see if they're going to play a factor. I mean, at first, leading up to the Errol Spence versus Crawford rematch, Errol Spence had no pressure on his back. Due to how the first fight went, this was going to be a win-win situation for Errol Spence in the rematch, because as long as he manages to go 12 rounds, it doesn't matter if he gets beat up the entire 12 rounds. As long as he doesn't get knocked out, people are going to give Errol Spence credit for at least going 12 rounds with Crawford in a rematch. However, with this new information Errol Spence came out with, this is definitely going to put a whole lot of pressure on Errol Spence to perform differently against Crawford in the rematch. The fans are going to expect Errol Spence not just to perform differently, better yet, pull off the actual win. Errol Spence is selling his own fans a whole lot of hope, so he's going to have to come through. And that's probably the pressure Errol Spence needs in order to perform, because during the last fight, Crawford was able to take his jab away, and that's Errol Spence's main weapon. In fact, Crawford's main weapon was his jab. So I'm looking forward to seeing the adjustments Errol Spence makes in the Crawford rematch. Last but not least, I'm wondering, since we are 6 months away from the fight between Crawford and Errol Spence, how come Errol Spence did this surgery now, not 2 months ago, in order to give himself more time for his surgery to heal or his injury to heal? Did Errol Spence do this in order to give himself more time to heal? Not from the surgery, since he just did it now. I'm talking about give his body more time to heal from the damage he took in the Crawford fight. I mean, the fact that Errol Spence did the surgery now, this is going to delay the rematch even 2 to 3 months more at the very least. With the facts being laid out, drop your thoughts in the comment section below. Subscribe below. And to be continued on the next episode of Akhi TV. Peace out. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.